for joining us, DJ. I've got your attendance corrected now. But this Friday will be the last time that we meet on Google Meet, and then next week on what's Thursday. Next Thursday, the 17th, will be your EOC exam, but we'll talk about all of that. Why did she? Okay. All right. So go ahead.
When are all the assignments due? Like, when are the grades getting put in?
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it was I just changed the slide so I can change something, but it was the answer to your question was at the very top of your screen and it was highlighted. The answer to that question is the 18th is the last day to turn in assignments, and that's next Friday. That's a week from Friday. So,
do you know when grades are going to be put in?
Grades will be finalized by the 22nd, but I'm not accepting any work beyond the 18th. All right. So all of your work has to be turned in by next Friday, December 18th. Grades are, for the most part, updated for everybody who's not in the virtual academy section of the class. Those of you who are in the virtual academy section of the class, you'll have to wait until they'll be done by the end of this class period. But you should know, for the most part, what assignments you still need to submit and which assignments have already been submitted. Some of you have submitted some assignments, but they received low scores for one reason or another, and you might consider redoing them if you have time. But it's most important that we're most prepared for the EOC exam, which is taking place next week. I do also want to mention that this Friday, December 11th, we'll take an optional Unit 10 exam. What I mean by optional is that you do not need to take it, but if you choose to take it and you score well on it, I will replace all of your other test scores with that score. All right. So this means that if you've gotten on Unit 6, you got a 56%. On Unit 7, you got a 61. And then on Unit 7, you got a 61. Unit 8, you got a 61. And then in Unit 9, you got a 71. If you take this test on Friday and you get an 83, then I'll go back in and I'll replace Unit 6 with an 83. I'll replace Unit 7 with an 83. And I'll replace Unit 8 with an 83. So there's an opportunity for big point growth and grade growth if you choose to do that. Now, it's also good practice, okay? So if you choose not to do it, you're also missing out on an opportunity to practice in advance of next week's EOC exam, all right? So keep that in mind as well. As it relates to the EOC, I do need to run through this quick presentation so that you all are aware of what's happening next week and what the protocols will be. So in this presentation, I'll discuss how final exams will be administered, what the testing schedule is, what the testing policies will be as they relate to Chromebooks and cell phones, and then also what you all can do to be prepared for your EOC exam. All right. So at WestMech, as you all probably know at this point, all EOC courses, of which there are 4, Math 1, Math 3, English 2, and Biology, have a corresponding EOC exam. There are also some CTE courses that also have a final exam. These are the only courses that will be administering final exams this year. All non-state administered tests have been canceled for this semester. So it's only these EOC exams and these CTE exams that you all will be worried about next week. These state tests are given at a certain time based on the block when the student is enrolled in the class. So they begin on December 15th, which is next Tuesday, and they run through December 21st, which is 2 weeks from today. All right. When you come to campus to take your exam, you will only be allowed if you are on the roster for an exam that day, for an exam scheduled that day. Obviously, because of the COVID protocols, we cannot have students wandering the halls who are not supposed to be here. So this means that you have to be careful about knowing when your test date is. Upon completion of each exam, we have to wait for everybody in the school to finish their exam before students are released. Keep in mind that next week will be early release days. We also have an early release day on Wednesday. So this means that next week we will be done no later than 12:15. Again, if you do not have a scheduled EOC or CTE exam that day, you cannot come to campus. I just want to be clear about that. All right, so on test day, you can expect that there will be a test administrator as well as a proctor in the room. There will be no more than 12 students in the room. So this means that we have a large class. As you all can see, we've got 23 students in class right now. That means that you all will be split up into at least 2 different classrooms, potentially 3. When you get here, you will receive your testing materials, and then you'll sit at your assigned seat. Kyrie, do you have a question? Kyrie, did you have a question?
So what if you're not on a roster? When do you start the test?
What do you mean if you're not on a roster?
Like if you can't come to school, when do you start? You can't do it at home?
No, you cannot take these tests at home. You have to come to school to do them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, bro, I just making my.
Okay. All right, so you'll receive your test materials. You'll sit at your assigned seat. Obviously, you should not hit any buttons until you're told to do so. There is a strict process that we must follow in order to get students signed in the correct place. Additionally, this is a good time to mention that you have to bring your own Chromebook. If you do not have a Chromebook, it has to be a CMS issued Chromebook. So if you do not have one, you need to come to the school between 7:30 a.m. and 3 o'clock p.m. this week in order to retrieve a Chromebook. You'll also be given a sheet of scratch paper. If you're taking a math EOC exam, you'll be given graph paper as well. You should bring your own pencils. Of course, because of the pandemic, we cannot hand out pencils and then collect them again at the end of class. So you need to bring your own pencils. If you cannot provide your own pencils, of course, we will provide some to you, but there is a limited supply considering we're not turning them back in this year. So please do try to bring your own pencils if you know that you like to take notes, scratch paper. So when you get here, I will not likely be your test administrator or your proctor. You probably will not see me that day because I'll be administering or proctoring another class's exam. This is to maintain the test security so that teachers are not with their own students, because that could call into question the integrity of the exam. So here's the testing schedule. Most of you are probably only in one EOC course, and that's this one. But some of you may also be in Math 1 or English 2 or even Math 3. So please do make sure you know what the testing schedule is for this class. We will be testing next Thursday, December 17th. So take time to take a look at this, take a screenshot, take a picture of it, so you feel best prepared to show up on time. Again, if you do not have a scheduled test, you cannot come to campus. You will not be allowed on campus. A student in my previous class also asked a good question. So she asked, if we can't come to campus and if we're also not meeting for a class like we normally do on Zoom or on Google Meet, then what should we be doing? Does that mean that our break has just started early? It might, if that means if you're one of those few students who has done all of your assignments and you look at your grade book in Power School and you see that you have no missing work, you've taken all of your exams, then yes, you can start your break. However, most of you are not in that position. 95% of you have missing assignments. What this means is that you should dedicate this time when you cannot come to campus, but you also aren't meeting with your teachers every day, to finish your missing assignments. Again, for this class, the deadline will be December 18th to turn in all missing assignments. But for some other classes, it might be December 16th. It might be this Friday. It might be December 11th. It just depends on what your teacher's preference is. So I would be very cautious about the mentality that you get to start your break early because you don't have any EOC exams besides this one. You really need to be cautious about that mentality, and you need to be serious about getting your missing work turned in. All right, so again, you do need to bring a CMS issued Chromebook with you any day that you have an EOC exam. Again, these are also early release days, which means that we'll be done no later than 12:15. However, we cannot dismiss students until all students are done testing, which means that inevitably, most people in the building will end up waiting while there is a certain number of students who are still taking their tests. So you've got to just be patient. Just know we're all going to get out on time, no later than 12:15. And that could very well be your only time attending school. That's this semester. You can come to the school to pick up a Chromebook between 7:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. I believe those are the hours. Let me check one more time.
Hey, so Mr. Will, I can't use the computer for my CTE class.
What's that?
I can use the computer from like my Adobe class.
There might be specific, there might be some different requirements for that because it is a computer class. So make sure you just ask your teacher about that. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, so to answer your question, Alyssa, you can come between 7:00 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. between Monday and Friday to get a Chromebook. All right. And then at the end of the day, there will be a grab and go lunch as well. So for this class, you all will need to bring pencils and you'll be given scratch paper. You can also bring a fictional novel or a magazine to read while you are waiting after you've completed your exam. All of your personal items, however, will not be allowed in the testing room, or they will have to be left at the front of the testing room. This includes cell phones, backpacks, and blankets. So please do come dressed in layers. I can tell you that because this school building has not been regularly used in several months, it is cold in here, okay? So please do come dressed in layers. You can also bring your own clear Ziploc bag if you would like to, use that as a pencil pouch or a calculator cover of some sort. Is there anything else I want to say here? No. As it relates to cell phones and other electronic devices, cell phones and other electronic devices, including smartwatches, are not permitted in testing rooms during state testing. And this is a statewide policy. The state of North Carolina considers a phone discovered on a student during testing an automatic misadministration. So in the past, you all probably know that we've collected cell phones. Teachers have gone around with a bin and you've written on an index card your name, and then you've put your phone in a Ziploc bag. We're not doing that this year because of COVID protocols. So what this means is that it might be a good idea if you can to leave your cell phone at home, but I recognize that you all are young adults and it is 2020, so cell phones are necessary for communication and safety. So if you do have to bring your phone to school, please do make sure that you turn it off and that you leave it at the front of the classroom with the rest of your personal belongings. Because if it's found to be on your person, during the exam, you will receive a misadministration and you'll have to retake the exam. And it also will jeopardize everybody else in the room as well. Some of you were not present, or you simply were not paying attention while we were doing the online assessment tutorial. You have to do that. So you will be pulled aside at some point to do that online assessment tutorial. We did it. We dedicated about 30 minutes to doing it together in class a few weeks ago. So those of you who were not here or who were not following along, you missed your opportunity to do it with the rest of us. You'll have to be pulled aside. Are there any questions about anything that I've said? No questions? Are there any questions about grades? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I again want to encourage you all to not be discouraged. There is still time. We still have some time to get these missing assignments done. I've sent out personal progress checks, and I'm going to send them out again today to give you all an idea of what assignments you still need to get done. I see your question, Jessica. Just give me a second. I color-coded the assignments so that you can see which assignments take the longest and which assignments are easier and don't take long at all to complete. That's a good starting place for those of you who are struggling to be motivated to start and to get some assignments done. Just start with the easy ones. Start with the short ones and get some momentum going. Once you knock those out, move on to the next level, the medium difficulty assignments. And as you go, not only are you helping your grade, but you're preparing for the EOC exam as well. So please, please, please do not be discouraged. Don't give up. Don't even think about waving the white flag. You all still have time. I'm still willing to help. You just need to get started. Some of you have a lot to do, and you need to start now. You should have started way back in October when we started this quarter, but we can't affect the past now. All we can affect is what we do going forward. So let's be encouraged. Let's be diligent. Let's be thorough, and let's be consistent for these next 2 weeks so we can do all we can to get our grades where we want and need them to be eligible for sports, to be eligible for scholarships for college, to be eligible for AB honor roll, whatever you're hoping to do. Even if it's just pass the class, so you don't have to take it again, you can still do it. You just need to be serious about these next 2 weeks and not waste any time. All right, don't be discouraged. There's still time to do it. To answer your question, I think I understand the question, Jessica, but let me know. Your question was, how will the exam times be? The exam is 2 hours long, and it is 65 questions long. So it's only a little bit longer than what we've gotten used to for our unit exams in terms of the number of questions, but you all will have 120 minutes instead of 75 minutes to do it. So that should be ample, ample time. I hope that answers your question. If not, let me know. All right. So this is probably the last time. You are welcome. This is probably the last time that we will introduce any new material into the course. This is our last standard for the course. Last one. So that's pretty exciting. That's reason to be excited. By the end of today, biologists will be able to identify structural and reproductive adaptations present in prokaryotes and protists. The essential question that we seek to answer: how are Eubacteria and Archaea different than protists? Today's date is December 7th, 2020, and it is the second day of our 10th unit. So I will say there's not really much to write down in this lesson. You don't need to take super thorough notes here. So let's just get through it, and you all can jump into your asynchronous assignment and maybe even have time to work on some missing assignments as well. But first, I want to play this quiz. I think this will be helpful to you all. So we've had Let's see. We've had 10 units in the course so far. This is our 10th one. And the second unit was all about cells and organelles. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. So I want to provide an opportunity for you all to review those concepts of cells and organelles, because it's something we haven't talked about in a long time. So please go to www.joinmyquiz.com and enter the game code 566513. Joinmyquiz.com and enter the game code 566513.
Mr. Roy, they won't let me log in. Mr. Roy,
Yes,
it won't let me in.
I certainly don't know why. Make sure you're entering the right join code 566513.
Yes, sir. That's what I put in.
Try that link, Anthony. See if that works for you. I'm going to go ahead and start it. You can obviously join mid-game. Do you have a question, Michelle?
No, I just wanted to see what that did.
I'll be back with that.
All right, we're just waiting for a couple more people to finish up. And so it looks like some folks are still working, and that's okay, but we're going to go ahead and knock this out because we have about 27 minutes left in class, and I want folks to have time to do the asynchronous assignment as well. All right. So as it relates to the animal kingdom, not the animal kingdom, as it relates to 3 of the 6 kingdoms that we have in the natural world, 3 of them are very basic, simple forms of life that do not resemble the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom as we typically know it. They have their own adaptations, both structural and reproductive adaptations that allow them to survive in some unique ways. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It shouldn't take long. Hopefully we're done in the next 6 minutes, and you all will have 20 minutes to do the asynchronous assignment. So the first kingdom that we'll talk about is Eubacteria. EU makes the U sound, and it means good bacteria. These are not necessarily good. It really means true bacteria. These are prokaryotic organisms, and they are also unicellular, which means that a single cell makes up an entire organism. They do not clump up together to form more complicated organisms, multicellular organisms. Examples of these eubacteria include Streptococcus, which is the bacterium that causes strep throat, E. coli, which we all probably have in our digestive systems, but if you ingest E. coli from a food source, you can also become pretty sick, and it's not a good thing. So E. coli can cause some abdominal pain and some digestive issues as well. And then Lactobacillus bulgaris. This is a bacterium that's found in yogurt. Can someone remind me what the word heterotroph means? What is a heterotroph?
Different.
Okay, the prefix hetero means different. And then what is a heterotroph? We've got the first half. When we put it all together, what does it mean? As opposed to an autotroph.
Like different cells.
Okay, we're kind of on the right track. A heterotroph is an organism that has to eat other things in order to get its energy. An autotroph is an organism that produces its own source of energy. Most autotrophs are photosynthetic. They do photosynthesis to create glucose. Human beings and most other animals have to do things like hunt for food or gather or eat berries in order to get our glucose to make energy. So we're heterotrophic organisms. We have to eat other things. Autotrophic organisms can produce their own sources of glucose. But I appreciate that participation, Jaden. Good job. So some of the structural adaptations that we see in eubacteria include cell walls. These eubacteria also use osmosis and diffusion to transport materials and nutrients from their environment inside of the cell. And then reproductive adaptations include the fact that they reproduce asexually. This allows them to have a rapid form of reproduction, but it also means that they have limited genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is something that organisms are guaranteed through sexual reproduction. All right, so when we look at this cell, and you guys are going to have an opportunity to do this later with the asynchronous assignment, but when we look at this cell, what's this internal light blue space called? It's the jelly-like fluid inside of the cell. What's that called? What is this jelly-like fluid inside of the cell called? Don't be afraid to be wrong. because you could be right.
Cytoplasm.
Thank you, Anthony. Good. This is the cytoplasm. Excellent. And then we also have a cell membrane here, which is just kind of difficult to see because it's so thin in this image. What about these whip-like tails that we have coming off of the cell? What are those called? Oh, and I didn't, thank you, Fanique, for sending that answer. What are these tails called right here?
Flagella.
Flagella, thank you, Sean. Good. This organ, so flagellum is the singular version of the word, and Sean said flagella, which is plural, which is correct in this case because we have at least 8 of these structures, so multiple flagella. And then lastly, we've got some DNA here. Keep in mind that prokaryotic organisms do not have a nucleus. So prokaryotic cells do not have nuclei. Okay, so their DNA is just kind of found floating throughout the cell. In the cells that you and I have in our bodies, there is a nucleus that houses the DNA. The second kingdom that we'll talk about is called Archaea. This was just recently added to the classification system in the last 30 years or so. These Archaea are quite fascinating and quite unique because they survive in what we previously thought were unsurvivable environments, so environments that were extremely hot or extremely cold, environments that had very little oxygen and received very little sunlight, environments that were very acidic, and environments that were not, they were depleted of oxygen. But we still find life in these areas, and this form of life is also prokaryotic. It's unicellular, and it typically it eats on the organic material, just basic chemical compounds that are coming out of these really harsh environments, like volcanic environments or hot springs, or even at the bottom of the ocean, where there are fissures in the surface of the ocean where gas is escaping from the center of the earth. They can survive that as well, which is an extremely hot environment.
Is it a lizard?
No.
I don't know what it is.
It's a prokaryotic organism. So it's basically, it looks like this.
Do we got a name? All that.
It looks very similar to this.
Thought it was an animal or
Now
something.
keep in mind, this would be something that is extremely small. You couldn't see this with your naked eye. But these are not animals. So of course the animal kingdom is something totally different. The plant kingdom is something totally different. This is called the Archaea kingdom. They have unique characteristics. They're prokaryotic because they do not have nuclei or mitochondria or chloroplasts. They're mostly heterotrophic and they're unicellular. So one single cell constitutes an entire organism. The kingdom Archaea is considered different than bacteria because of their genes. They have a different genetic code. However, they also reproduce asexually, which means that there's a limited amount of genetic variation here as well. And then lastly, we've got this kingdom Protista. These are eukaryotic, mostly unicellular organisms. So these organisms actually do have nuclei and other membrane-bound organelles. They still reproduce asexually. So they have unique characteristics because they have some characteristics that remind us of fungi, some that remind us of animals, and others that remind us of plants. So they've got a little bit of the other more traditional forms of life, and together that makes them quite unique. All right. We'll come back and do this Kahoot another time. We've got 17 minutes, and I want you guys to go ahead and knock out the asynchronous assignment for the day, which is on Canvas. It is an EOC prep assignment. It should say U10D2 EOC prep assignment number 2. There's also an exit ticket for you to knock out as well. So you have work to do over the next 16 minutes. The assignment itself is only 5 questions long, and it just asks you to identify organelles in the cell. So you should be able to knock that out pretty quickly, and then you can move on. I'll be here on mute if anybody has any questions about anything I've talked about today, or if they need help with the assignment.
You say D1 or D2?
You should have both you should already have D1 done, so you can go ahead and knock out D1, Anthony, but you should also be moving towards D2.
All right.
Okay, folks, it's now 1:20. So you are good to go. Please do continue to communicate with me. You will be receiving an updated progress report 2 weeks ahead of the end of the semester. So you know exactly what you need to do to get caught up. I will talk to you all tomorrow.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too.